who's going to fill the void left by Ty Jerome in 2025, 2026 for the Cleveland Cavaliers? It's at the top of the list of things that we'll talk about on today's episode. Courtside with the Cavs is back. Spence, good to be back, man. I know we've been dealing with a lot of different things with the show. You were obviously back in July. I think dating back to July, really. You were obviously at Summer League, and then there were some changes with us going to different platforms and all these different things. And so it had been sort of this whole – we were in a holding pattern. We were kind of in a holding pattern. But we have been talking behind the scenes about getting the podcast back up and going. Training camp and media days is literally just around the corner, because I think it's like a month from now, like early October, we'll be at Rocket
September
Mortgage.
29th, brother.
Or it's not
September
Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse anymore, Rocket Arena, and we'll be talking to these guys about a new season, and they'll be talking about expectations and everything that's going to come with this year. And maybe by then the Browns season will be over anyway, and people will be looking forward to the Cavs season. So we'll see.
Don't say that to me. Don't say that to me yet. They played well yesterday.
It's only 4 weeks in. It'll only be 4 weeks in. They'll still have a fighting chance. But no, I'm obviously looking forward to it. We're glad to be back, and there's going to be plenty to talk about with this team, because they're going to be one of the favorites in the East. They're going to be one of the favorites to contend for a championship, and that is going to come with some lofty expectations. But I do think it's going to be interesting, Spence, because Ty Jerome, as we know, was so important to what this team did last year. The spark he provided off the bench, kind of came out of nowhere. We heard throughout the season, guys talking about how, like, we saw this in training camp, and we all kind of wondered, like, can he really keep this up? And then he kept it up for an entire season. And, that's kind of the last time we really did an episode was like back when he had just been, he had moved on and the Cavs didn't retain him. And they made the Lonzo Ball trade. And I think that's going to be the natural answer maybe to this question, is that's just going to be up to Lonzo Ball. But I'm curious how you think the void left by Ty Jerome's departure is going to be filled within this team in the season ahead.
You can't just do it with one player. You got to do it by committee, and I think that's where the Cavs are going to look at it. When you think about the punch that he provided off the bench, the first guy that you're going to look at is Lonzo Ball. But when Lonzo Ball is not playing, say it's the second night of a back-to-back and he's inactive, you're going to look towards the guys like Craig Porter Jr. You're going to look towards a guy like Jalen Tyson, the cover athlete of this podcast before we started. And then also, I think Sam Merrill will play a pivotal role, playmaking-wise. I think that his role is going to be increased in certain ways. If he's not in the starting lineup, he's going to have to provide a punch for them, more than just the shooting, more than just the defense. They're going to really have to open things up for Sam. So I think those guys come to mind first. Evan Mobley's playmaking is obviously going to be a huge factor going forward. And we know that Kenny Atkinson's going to put the ball in his hands. Talked about those lofty MVP expectations during the Summer League broadcasts. So everyone's going to have to step up, really. Don't forget, I know that Ty Jerome left, but we have a Max Strus injury we're going to get to later. Darius Garland's going to be out for at least the first 10, 11 games of the season, and they've got to figure out how to fill that void. So it's a couple of different things that are starting out this season a little bit behind, which I think might be good for this team, because you're going to find out a lot about this team's depth, and you're also going to see how they respond to adversity right away.
Yeah, it's well said in terms of some of the injuries, and obviously we will get into those things here a little bit. I like what you got to when it comes to just it's going to kind of take a village, if you will. Like it's not just going to be one guy. Like Lonzo is the guy you're going to point to, because he plays the same position. He was the guy they essentially opted for bringing in to replace Ty Jerome. That led to Ty Jerome then going and signing with Memphis in the end. But I also think too, and we've talked about this, like Lonzo is more of like a pure point guard. Not that he can't score. His scoring numbers are there. You can pull him up in his career stats and see that he can certainly score points in this league. But I also think like part of the reason they wanted him was he's going to look to facilitate. He's going to get other guys involved. He's going to create shots for other players. And that's where, when you talk about getting like other guys helping fill that void, and it being sort of like a number of players that have to kind of step up, that's where I get it. My ears perk up a little bit, because I know you'll enjoy this conversation, because you've enjoyed talking about these two players specifically. but somebody like Jalen Tyson, who clearly Kobe Altman talked so much in his end of season press conference about development. And part of the reason we thought that Ty Jerome might be on the outs was because he leaned into that so much in that press conference, and that they want to see other guys kind of increase their roles. And Jalen is certainly at the forefront of that list. Craig Porter Jr. is another guy who I'm curious to see how his role maybe changes or increases on this team. And then you also have their top pick from this year in Tyrese Proctor, who maybe gets some run earlier than other rookies have with this team because they're looking for a spark, and because of maybe the necessity here with these injuries that have obviously they're gonna be on the docket for this team to get through to start the season. So yeah, I look to those guys for sure, but I do think you're right too. Like it's gonna sort of be, I think, a shared responsibility where Sam Merrill's got to do a little bit more. Yes, Lonzo's got to do a little bit more. And there's probably some other players that we haven't quite talked about yet that also sort of come into that conversation. But I think you're right. I think it is going to take multiple people.
And I'm glad that you mentioned Craig Porter Jr. and Tyrese Proctor, because they might have a little bit of a trial by fire early in the season.
Yeah.
We just talked about how DG is going to be out. Max Strus is going to be out. Those are legitimate rotation players that are going to need minutes filled. And Craig Porter Jr., we thought that he was going to have this awesome summer league going in and knowing that his role was going to be higher, what he can do when he's in charge of an offense. And then in the first quarter, he goes down with an injury. Just terrible luck.
Yeah.
And I think that they really believe in him. And I think that Craig can certainly do some really solid things for this team. We know he protects the basketball. He's really good defensively at baiting guys in. He plays bigger than his size. Obviously, an improved three-point shooter as well when you watch behind the scenes. But do you have the trust in him to play this much early on? So the battle between him and Tyrese Proctor, I think, will be fascinating too, because Tyrese Proctor showed some really solid flashes towards the end of Summer League of being somebody that can knock down shots.
How many points did he score in that one game?
It was somewhere like the high 20s, low 30s, wasn't it?
I was gonna say, I think he eclipsed 30.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I feel like that was like so
Neither
long
can I.
ago. It really wasn't that long ago, but
when you're in Las Vegas for Summer League, it all just goes. It all just goes, man.
We all know why you were blanking on. Yeah, we know why you were blanking on the number while you were out in Vegas.
But yeah, no, I think that Tyrese certainly has the size, right? He's a tall guy, tall guard. When you look at him next to Jalen Tyson when they're in practice, especially when they're out of Summer League, like they were almost like nose to nose. So that tells me that Tyrese is not done growing yet physically. And then also we know that mature-wise, Tyrese learned a lot at Duke because it didn't start out great for him when he came over to the States from Australia a year early. And then, he had to go through all that change with the coaching staff and who he was playing with. Last year, I think, was really good for him because there were guys that were NBA level players. You see what, Con Kneppel going in the draft. You see Kamen Malak going in the draft. Sion James goes to Charlotte. And you have all of these really high expectation players. Gosh, why did I not say Cooper Flagg? It's 9:50 when we're recording this. It's fine. Cooper Flagg. But really, that starting five is all NBA caliber players. So him playing with that level of talent, I think, is certainly going to help him transition to this stage. And he's got a lot to offer. He's got a really quick trigger, man. And I think we'll see a little bit more of the playmaking by necessity because they're going to have to find ways to move the ball and get it into the right players' hands too, of course. But he could score in bunches. And hopefully he adjusts to the defensive end of the floor and is able to guard because that'll keep him on the floor if he gets that opportunity early. But a lot of stuff going on in the backcourt. We know that, Isaac Okoro's gone. Who's going to step up and be the defensive stopper? Sam Merrill, we mentioned earlier.
Sam was great in the playoffs. Sam was awesome in the playoffs.
Sam did a really good job of firming up, and he did a really good job throughout the season. I'll tell you again, my favorite assignment he ever took on was Damian Lillard. I thought he did a terrific job on Damian Lillard in Milwaukee the couple times they faced off, and he just does not back down from a challenge. And I think that's why he earned that contract this year, 4 years, damn near $40 million total. So That, Craig Porter Jr., Tyrese Proctor, probably your closest subjects other than Lonzo Ball, who I'm sure Kenny Atkinson will call a connector about a gajillion times this year because that's his favorite word when it comes to somebody who knows their role, plays it well, and can execute.
Yeah, I think all that's well said. By the way, it was 35 points. I looked it up while you were
there you go.
Talking there. So
we did crack
35 points. He was right in the middle of the 30s, which is a good number. And yeah, that performance certainly stood out as one of the more memorable ones from Summer League and sets the stage for whatever Proctor's going to bring to the team this year. We'll see. Like you said, he has a quick trigger. I'm curious to see what his role kind of looks like. And I like what you said, Spence, earlier, because with the injuries, we know about Max Strus' situation now. He's going to miss the beginning of the season. Darius, obviously, after the toe injury he had in the playoffs, needed surgery. He's going to miss probably a couple of months to start the season. And there's a couple different ways to go to look at those specifically. Like, on one hand, no, you don't want your guys injured, but also like it might be that's the time of year where it's okay if they're hurt, right? Like, you'd rather they be hurt then, get back and can get acclimated for the second half of the season and then build yourself up for the playoffs. But I want to look at it more from the stance of like what it means for the rest of the roster and guys kind of stepping up. Like, we talk about Lonzo Ball and how important he's going to be filling that void, maybe being the primary guy to fill that void from Ty Jerome leaves. He's going to get a ton of run early. Like, he's going to probably be out there a lot with Donovan Mitchell in the early going of the season, and that's good for building chemistry with them together. Guys like Tyrese Proctor and Craig Porter Jr. might get some run with that second unit. Jalen Tyson is going to probably see a lot more minutes early on because these guys are dealing with their injuries. And there's another guy who we haven't talked about really yet in DeAndre Hunter, who I am truly fascinated to see how his role increases, changes, what it all looks like in year two on a couple fronts. There's been a lot said about last summer. Kenny was coaching the French team for the Olympics. He was kind of back and forth between Cleveland and France and all that, and didn't really get a chance. Like, he joked, I think, about like still having, or Kobe, I think, joked actually about like him still having boxes he hadn't unpacked yet and all this different stuff. And so the whole point of that was to say, this is an offseason where he's here, he's working with his guys, he's game planning, he's figuring out different ways to utilize guys and things that worked and things that didn't, and strategizing, and that's all beneficial. And I think one of the most important players that he's going to be trying to figure out that he's tried to figure out this offseason, is going to continue to try to figure out as the season approaches, is DeAndre Hunter and how to deploy him. We know last year he was kind of that one of the first guys up off the bench role with Ty Jerome. And they fit together because they had the chemistry, obviously, from their time in college together. But this year, he seems like he's going to be in line to start, especially with Max Strus obviously being out to start the season. So we'll see if that's something that sticks beyond when Max Strus returns. But I would think it would, because he's such a dynamic player. We know that. It's part of the reason why they traded for him. He felt like that missing piece to help them get over that hump. And so, man, like, that is one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to, is seeing how DeAndre Hunter's role evolves in this second year with the team and with a full offseason to kind of get integrated with his teammates.
You took the words right out of my mouth when we were texting what we wanted to talk about on this podcast. DeAndre Hunter. This guy is much more than a role player. He's much more than just a sixth man. This is a top 5 NBA draft pick not that long ago who has plenty of room to grow still and is entering his prime. This guy can shoot the basketball. We saw last year when he came over that he's got a little bit to his handle that we didn't really see too much of in Atlanta. The dribble pull-ups, outstanding, but even getting to the rim, drawing fouls. The jump shot, how many times have we talked about? It's so high at his release point. It's really hard to block. So not just sticking him in the corner, not just sticking him on the outside and making him spot up, but having him in actions. I think putting him in situations where he's cutting, where he can play make out of the cut. I think situations maybe even where he's the ball handler. We were talking, me and Mikey McNuggets over on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We were talking about that. What if DeAndre has the ball in his hands every once in a while and is playmaking out of the short roll? You know, like these are so many different options that Kenny Atkinson has. And we know that there's a lot of motion in that half court. So they're going to have to find ways without Max Strus to get that going. Maybe DeAndre Hunter's part of that. Defensively, I think that there's still room for him to improve. He covers a lot of ground, but I would like to see him maybe move his feet a little bit better. I know that his hands are quick and he's got a good job of staying in front, but the rebounding has to be better. We know that he has a lot of chemistry already with Evan Mobley and Dean Wade, your favorite three-man lineup there in the front court.
Yep.
So maybe we see that deployed out there a little bit. But I am enamored by DeAndre Hunter's potential, and that's even just on top of the player he already is right now. I just think that they're going to bring out somebody that we haven't seen yet in a DeAndre Hunter, that we know that he can reach his potential. And the thing about DeAndre, man, like, the Cavs have been searching for a 6'8" wing since LeBron James was gone. I know that they had Lauri Markkanen, and that is factual. He was their best three since that point.
He's the one. Even Lauri, like, I always go back to that trade and I say, like, if there had been a way to not give him up in that trade, like, I think about, like, where the Cavs would already be potentially at this point, because he's the one, right? Like, he's the piece that they've been missing. And it just stinks you had to give him up in that deal. But yeah, that you're right. Like, they've been desperate to find that guy.
They've been desperate to find that guy, and they finally have him. 6'8", 6'9" guy with a huge wingspan, defends, and can score at all three levels. Like, this is the guy that they've been looking for this whole time. And I think we just brushed that off because, it was a trade deadline acquisition just for last year. No, it's a long-term fit for this team. And especially if they reach their goal in the East the way it is right now, and they get to the finals, then he's going to be around for a while. And he fits really well. He fits really well.
Well, and that's why I think, reflecting on that trade, I know it felt like at the time it was like an all-in move for 2025, or the end of the 2024-25 season. But what was brilliant about pulling that off, that the way Kobe did, was you got a player that had multiple years of control beyond just this year. And that was what you needed, right? Like, they've been desperate for that wing, but they didn't want to just get like a rent wing. They wanted to get like an actual guy that could be part of this lineup for a while, and that they could build around.
And they loved him in that draft class, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. They loved him that draft.
Yeah.
It worked out.
And they finally land him here. And what, we've talked so much previously back in the spring and early summer, and it's going to be talked about a 1,000 times again leading up to the season. The whole concept of Evan Mobley taking that leap. You brought up earlier, Spence, the comments from Kenny Atkinson at Summer League about, we expect him to be in the MVP conversation because that's the type of player we think he is. And that probably adds a little bit of pressure, but I think Evan's ready for that. But what we're lost in that conversation, I think, is like, yes, there is another level to Evan Mobley's game. But I also think there's another level to DeAndre Hunter's game, because the role he was asked to play last year, we were only got to see so much of what he could do. He wasn't in the starting lineup most nights. And so I think there's another level to his game that's even out there. And so if you're looking for reasons to be like, if you're going into the season and you're thinking like, well, what's going to be different, right? Because that's always the big thing with Cavs fans, is like, same story, different year. We're soft. We're going to get bounced in the front. Those are the comments that are going to be happening at the start of the season. It goes back to the Donovan Mitchell comments about like, we could go 82-0 next year and nobody's going to care. I think that's largely true. But if you're looking for reasons why this year can be different and why this year can end with a different result, I think it's because of those two things in particular. Yes, Evan Mobley, if he keeps ascending the way that they think he's going to keep ascending, that's huge. That's huge. If he becomes that MVP caliber player, I mean, you have a all-world player on your team then. And if DeAndre Hunter fits a different role and he runs with it, and he's that wing that can play, that can defend on one end, and I agree with you. I think there's room to improve there a little bit, but score from all three levels on the offensive end and give you that spark you've been looking for. Like, man, that sounds enticing to me. Like, it feels like this lineup will sort of finally be completed with all the right pieces and parts that they need. And so that's why I'm excited to see what DeAndre Hunter's, place and role on this team sort of becomes.
Yeah, just going to expand. It's going to expand, and I think it just makes everything easier for everybody else. And
Yeah.
that goes again to like Evan Mobley playmaking, and it's all a domino effect, man. Like if you can stretch out just a little bit more and make sure that there's no one on the floor that a team can say, we don't have to guard that guy. Cavs not going to have one of those. And that's what makes it difficult to stop the Cavs. And we saw that even last year before DeAndre Hunter. Now, put DeAndre Hunter in that mix now, it's tough. Good luck. Good luck, man. Like, Donovan Mitchell, dynamic player. Darius Garland, when healthy, dynamic player. Evan Mobley, improving and dynamic player. Like, this is a tough, tough offensive group to figure out when you have Kenny Atkinson pulling off the X's and O's.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the other part of that puzzle too, is Kenny gets the whole offseason to sort of game plan and figure out what these guys are going to do. And, you know, knowing the offensive mind he is, I'm sure he's going to have the right spots for each of these guys. And so we'll see what that all kind of looks like, especially with the injuries, as we alluded to. I think the other, like from the injury standpoint too, I hope that and the Cavs usually do this anyway, but they should take a very much like slow approach to it. Like, don't rush these guys back. Just let them get back on their own accord. Given how injuries have derailed this team's season in recent years,
As long as you're top
four. Yeah. Like, there's no need to rush them. Just get through those first couple months. I think the Cavs, even without Max Strus, even without Darius Garland, you're good enough that you'll be able to stay afloat in the Eastern Conference, a banged up Eastern Conference at that. Like, you don't need to risk any injuries. I don't think they will, but I think that's the right approach to have. Because like I said, if the end result here is, well, these guys get back in November, late November, early December, or at the end of the year, then you know you have the time necessary from December, January, February, March to get them sort of back in the mix of things and then ready for the playoffs, which is when you're going to want them the most at that time of year, obviously.
I can already see the fans clamoring around like January or like early February, and it's like, oh, we need to trade for somebody like that, and Darius Garland's just getting like to his like full on self again after another injury, and then Max Strus starts ramping up again and stuff like that, and then Kobe Altman comes out and said, well, that was like the trade for us, and then all of these fans are gonna get mad because of that answer is like, oh, we're gonna figure out the problem internally. I can just see it. I've covered too many seasons, right, Spence. It's just it just plays through my head right now. Oh, well, you know, Darius and Max were pretty much like our trade acquisitions. Like, I can totally see that answer right now, and I will go back to this if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that people understand, like, I think they pulled their big cards out, or the big guns out last year to get DeAndre Hunter to sort of complete the roster they were looking to build. I don't know that that's in the cards this year, unless they decide on a whim. Like, the only way that would happen, I think, Spence, is like, if things go so terribly wrong that they decide, you know what, we have to break up the core four now and like try to change something up. And that's the only way I think they make a trade of any sort of magnitude at the deadline. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I'm with you. Like, fans are going to be getting antsy. They always do. They're going to be looking for some big move, and it's just not going to be there.
And I don't fault them. I can just see the reaction right now. Like, I'm picturing it on September 8th, 2025. I'm just looking ahead by 3 or 4 months. And I do.
We're on the same wavelength. We're on the same wavelength. I know exactly where you're going with this. But yeah, and then the big thing too is like, hopefully, because there's been seasons where Darius has been hurt or whatever, and he hasn't. Now, the jaw thing was different. Like, the jaw, he lost a lot of weight. He wasn't really able to do much. Like, this is a situation where, once he's able, like, if they can ease him back into it the right way, I think he'll be okay. But you just want him to get back to his normal self. And it might take some time. I think that's the other thing fans have to realize too, is like, it might take some time for him to kind of get up to speed. And again, if that means he's playing his best basketball in March and April and then May, I think you'll take that. So I just hope that people are going to be willing to be patient with him, because, yeah, there might be some ugly games in the beginning as he kind of gets his sea legs back underneath him, but I think he'll be okay in the end, because I know Darius is a great player.
Yeah, and, it's not easy to play in the playoffs against one of the most physical and fastest teams in the league when you have a custom-made spacer put in your foot to help you actually balance and to alleviate any sort of pain you were going through. So yeah, you're gonna have to find a way to push through that. It looks like he's already up and on his feet. He's not doing too much. Like, I don't think he's going to do any contact or anything like that yet, but I see he's working with Dashletics on Instagram, which is a trainer that really pushes the conditioning. So that's a good thing. It's the only way to get back is to, get back on that bike and start trusting in it again. And hopefully when he starts going through runs, he gets the same confidence that he was playing with last year, because the first half of the season last year was just, oh my gosh, man, all-star caliber player and just so good on both ends, really. I think he did a really good job on the switches. I think he played really well off the ball, playing that free safety that Kenny Atkinson talks about on off the ball to get the break started off of a steal. The three-pointer was looking crispy. He was making clutch shots. The floater / alley-oop read option play was working to a T. Playing well off the ball, on the ball with Donovan Mitchell, which I know is a big question mark going into last season. You've seen the proof. The proof is in the pudding now. He's got to be able to stay healthy. And now, if some freak injury happens going into the postseason and that's just fate, then you have to have conversations. And that's not even anyone's fault. But yeah. I am going to be on the Darius Garland train until that happens. I just think this guy is way too good. You talk to so many people around the league when you're in summer league, and you hear all this raving over how good he was, how tough he was to go through that injury and play in the playoffs, first of all, but also just the handle he has, the conditioning, the way that he takes care of the basketball, just being an offensive engine that a lot of teams would kill to have. And he is still so young and improving. And this is right now when he's going to have the spotlight the most on him. And it's going to, come 10 games into the season, 11 games of the season, whenever he makes his debut. And you got to be on that upward trajectory right with Evan Mobley. You got to be on the same plane, going up at the same time.
Yeah, you just hope that he can have at least one season where he's healthy for the playoffs, or he's healthy all year and it doesn't derail his playoffs. Because like I said, the broken jaw just completely derailed his season 2 years ago, because he could just, he was lighter. He just couldn't get back into the place he needed to be. And then like last year, the toe happens, 2 games into the playoffs, and it derails his postseason. I just want to see.
It's unreal because he plays so many games in the regular season. They do everything right. The conditioning, it's insane. It's hard. The nutrition team was great.
Right. I feel for him because he's labeled as this big playoff no-show, but he hasn't also necessarily had the best circumstances when it's come to those playoffs. And I get, like you said,
nor the opportunity. The opportunity hasn't presented. So it's an incomplete.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's that's what I feel for him with, because it's that's an unfair label until we really see him actually get a chance to perform on that stage when he's healthy. And I just hope this can be the year where he answers that bell, because we know the type of player he is. I don't think that's just going to go away because it's the playoffs. I get there's sometimes that happens with players, but I don't think Darius is one of those guys. I think it's just been wild circumstances that have unfortunately derailed that for him and taken away those opportunities. All right, Spence, listen, speaking of the playoffs, speaking of NBA Finals aspirations, I think it's a fun little exercise here to just talk about teams that are the biggest threats to the Cavs. And we know there's probably a handful in the West, but what I want to look at specifically is the Eastern Conference, because we know this conference is banged up. We know what the Celtics situation is. We know what the Pacers situation is. Both those teams kind of expected to take a step back. And as things stand right now, I have an unnamed sportsbooks odds in front of me right here. We're not doing any free advertising here. And if they want to be advertisers,
look at that.
They want to be I say that, and then next week I'll be talking about
Spence is his own bookie. He's making his own numbers up. He's making his own odds up.
I wish I was. I say that by the way. I say that by the way, and then one day I'll have some story about going to Swenson's Burger, and then I'll be like, I love Swenson's, and I'll give him some free advertising. You know it's gonna happen. But anyway,
had Swenson's yesterday, by the way. Very good.
There you go. There's the free
2 galley boys and a potato teaser.
The potato teaser is the best. But anyway, an unnamed sportsbooks odds here, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have the best odds at repeating as champions. The Cleveland Cavaliers are number 2 on this list, plus 650. The Knicks are number 3 at plus 950. The next Eastern Conference team, you have to go past the Nuggets, Rockets, Lakers to the Orlando Magic at plus 1,800 to win the NBA Finals. And then the Atlanta Hawks are the fourth highest odds team in the Eastern Conference, which I also found kind of interesting because the Bucks, who changed some things up this offseason, still aren't really in this mix in terms of the Vegas odds. But I think it's fair to assume for most places that like the Knicks are the biggest threat to Cleveland, and it's those two teams kind of at the top of the Eastern Conference with the Celtics having to kind of navigate the Tatum injury, with the Pacers having to navigate obviously the Halliburton injury. Are we sleeping on any teams though, Spence? Like, are the Knicks the truest threat to the Cavs in the Eastern Conference when it comes to getting to the finals, or is there another team that maybe we should be paying closer attention to?
You know, in terms of titles, I think Milwaukee is still in that conversation because they have probably the best player in the world on their team.
Yeah,
other
fair.
than Nikola Jokic. I mean, 1A, 1B.
He's still great.
I think
Giannis is still great.
So you can never count someone out like that. So that's probably my other answer would be Milwaukee. In terms of like who I'm intrigued by, you bring up Orlando, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. They go out and they get Desmond Bane, so now they have some shooting. Loved that pickup. Think that was a really good move for them. So looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. Detroit intrigues me. Not in terms
I was going to ask about
the
them.
Finals team.
If you didn't get to them, which I know you're always thorough, so I figured you would. But if you hadn't gotten to them, I was going to ask what you thought about Detroit. Because I can just see it now. A JB Bickerstaff rematch with his former team, and if the can you imagine if the Cavs lose that series? Man. Anyway,
gosh, I would quit. I would quit. No, Detroit. I'm intrigued by Cade Cunningham. Is a beast, man, and I think they have a lot of good stuff going there. Atlanta, you bring up on the odds. Kristaps Porzingis must have a lot of pull because that's a bold call on the unnamed sports book, but I think they did do a good job, honestly, of utilizing their offseason and going and get KP, mixing the team up a little bit. Onyeka Okongwu is going to have one of those years where he takes a leap. Mo Gay, I think, is also somebody that you can look out for in terms of player development that got some significant minutes for them down the stretch last year and got some valuable experience. Reece Shea, being in his second year, I thought he had a pretty solid rookie year. Kind of had that lull in the middle of the season and then really came back around. Dyson Daniels, obviously defensive player of the year candidate. So they've got a lot. They brought in Luke Kennard too. Do not sleep on the lefty sharpshooter who can also play make. So they've got some good stuff going on down there too. But the East is open, man. Like, it's a cliche to say it, but it is wide open. I'm thinking Cavs Knicks is going to be it, but you never know. Because you can't predict injury. You can't predict
for sure.
Trades. You can't predict any of that stuff. So it's all preseason stuff, which is why it's difficult. But yeah, as of today, I would probably say Cleveland, New York, Milwaukee as those top three.
I think that's fair. I like you am very intrigued by the Orlando Magic. I thought the move for Bane was great. Like the one thing we said going into the playoffs, like if the Cavs had drawn the Magic, you probably didn't want to draw the Magic because they were just gonna like make you work and like really wear you down. And we didn't want to see like in a first round series where the Cavs were a great team last year. You didn't want to leave a series like just battered and beaten, obviously. Like you would have rather just come out clean, which is what kind of happened for the most part, aside from the toe injury for Darius Garland against the Heat, because that was a coast of a series for them. So that mentality, like that physical nature they play with, but now you add some more scoring into the mix. It a little bit scary. Like I'm curious to see what that kind of looks like for them. And also, like, they were missing Jalen Suggs for most of the season last year. Another year of Paolo, and like, what step we always talk about Evan Mobley taking a leap. Like, what type of leap does he take? So I'm intrigued by them, and they are the team I think like should not be overlooked. I think most people are at least talking about them and mentioning them. But yeah, certainly I think it's those three teams kind of at the top. I like that you bring up Milwaukee because you're right. When you have Giannis, when you have the best player on the planet, you always have a shot. And yeah, I mean, I still think the Celtics are going to be pretty competitive, but I don't know that it's going to be enough to contend in the Eastern Conference. Indiana is going to be interesting because like they it's not just the fact that Halliburton's out. They also saw some changes with their lineup this offseason with Evan Turner leaving. And so I'm curious to see like
Turner.
or sorry, Miles Turner.
Evan Turner. We're throwing it back a little while.
I completely messed it up. But yeah, with Miles Turner leaving, like I'm curious to see how that even sort of fits. So yeah, I think it is rightfully the Cavs and the Knicks, but I wouldn't sleep on Orlando. And I think you're right to bring up Milwaukee as kind of like another horse that shouldn't be forgotten about because with Giannis, they're always going to have a shot. And when the nice thing is, Spence, we get to see Knicks Cavs first night of the season for the Cavs.
Unbelievable.
So Unbelievable.
Awesome. Can't wait to see all those takes.
And on Christmas. Or wait, they're playing the Knicks on Christmas. Yeah.
Yep. Isn't that the dream? That's the gift that keeps on giving right there. All the things that I complain about, and I know that I'm just going to see throughout that entire game, ups and downs, run after run. Just going to see everything. Hey, do you remember that series against the Knicks in 2023? Like, it's just all going to culminate, like we're going to do the
Robinson
same.
Really punked them.
we're going to do this again.
On Christmas. No better way to ruin your Christmas, man.
No better way to ruin my Christmas. But here, I have one more question for you based on this topic too.
Sure.
And I think this is also something that kind of goes over a lot of people's heads because Joel Embiid is never available. He's always hurt. But are the Sixers someone we should look at?
Are they
Tyrese
dead? Are they just dead?
Tyrese Maxey's really good. Okay, for one. Paul George, I know for all the lumps he takes, I think Paul George is actually a pretty good player. And I think that he's going to respond to some of the criticisms. And he's still got enough in the tank, in my opinion. So maybe that's another team that we're not really looking at too much.
That's interesting.
BJ Edgecombe was the top 3 pick, and they now add that dynamic in there. I know that that's not exactly making him ready for the next stage, but even Jared McCain, he's he misses the majority of the season last year after going down with injury. But he was a terrific rookie. So I don't know. We look at them and say, hey, maybe they're going to be kind of feisty or no.
I like that because you're right. If Embiid can stay healthy, and Paul George for that matter, like of course that team is a force to be reckoned with. I can tell you that in this unnamed sports book, the Sixers have, what is this? 3 quick math 4. They have the 6th best odds in the Eastern Conference. They're plus 4,000. Also tied with, actually they're tied with the Dallas Mavericks in terms of odds to win the championship. But yeah, I they are sort of lurking, and I think it would just take a season where those guys miraculously, and it feels like at this point it would be a miraculous thing for them to stay healthy. But absolutely, like if Embiid finally pulls that off and Paul George finally pulls that off, I think absolutely that team can beat the Knicks and the Cavs on any given night. But I think
just feel like they've been buried, Yeah. I think part of the reason their odds are what they are is because nobody's assuming they're going to stay healthy. I think that's just the assumption at this point.
You said we can't predict injuries,
which is fair.
But with the Sixers, you can almost predict injuries. It seems like so.
Yep.
But I like that. I like where your head's at with this exercise, and that you're thinking through the thought, like the idea that there could be some other teams out there that we're not paying enough attention to and maybe could sneak up if things go their way. So is there anybody else that we're missing? I think we kind of covered the basics of this. I don't know if anyone's like thinking the Washington Wizards are going to make a miraculous turnaround or anything. So, but you can always hit us up on X at Spencito_ at Spin Davies. You can jump in the comment section of the YouTube channel as well. We appreciate you guys, as always, coming to hang out with us and talking Cavs. The podcast is back, Spence. Podcast is back.
We're on Roundtable. Throw your comments in there. We'll respond to you there. It's going to be a very fan-friendly platform. Please, please, please engage.
Yeah, and I think I'll make a habit of posting the podcast link as a community post as well. I know we're gonna do we're gonna make sure it's in that community section as well.
Oh, we're gonna be
sure.
slicing this thing up like a nice
Yeah.
pizza for you guys. Don't worry. Every little mini segment's gonna be a post of its own. That's what we'll be doing. So,
and
yeah,
in the meantime, we'll still be on the YouTube channel as well. So follow us there. It's good to be back. We can promise you that we will start to have episodes again at least once a week, and I'm very much looking forward to having these conversations with Spence because the season is just around the corner. So looking forward to it. Thanks for stopping by. Another one in the books. Keep on following along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers with Courtside with the Cavs.